All right, looks like people are joining us. I'll give everyone another minute to get settled in. All right. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Um, Thanks so much for joining us today for our semi-annual Back to School with Achieve webinar. My name is Lindsay Thomas, and I'm the Senior Customer Marketing Manager at Macmillan Learning. Before we begin the webinar, I do have a couple of quick housekeeping announcements. So the first is we do want to hear from you, even though you'll be muted throughout the webinar. If you want to ask a question or give any feedback, feel free to put it in your chat panel of Zoom. We'll be monitoring questions as they come in, but we'll also be saving them mostly for the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Depending on how many questions we get today, we might not be able to answer everything live, but we will be sure to follow up with you by email if your question does not get answered. And finally, this is one of the most common questions we get, so I'll just answer it now. One of the questions we always get is whether we're recording this webinar, and we are. So we'll be emailing you a link to the recording and the slide deck within the next few days. So with that, I'll kick things off by introducing you to our lovely panel of speakers as I go through this agenda. So first up, we have our Achieve new feature showcase and refresher of some of our most popular Achieve tools with Heather Halter-Kimball. So Heather is a team lead for customer success here at Macmillan Learning. She has been at Macmillan for 10 years, supporting instructors in their use of digital products like Achieve. Prior to Macmillan, she taught public speaking online, hybrid, and face-to-face for 5 years. And then we'll turn things over to two of our Achieve peer consultants, so you'll get to hear from a peer. They'll be sharing some of their best practices and tips and tricks for getting started at the beginning of the new term. So first we'll have Believe and Achieve, a discussion of goal setting and reflection surveys with Stephen Henry. Stephen is a professor of biology at Houston Community College, one of the largest community colleges in the US with an extremely diverse student body. Dr. Henry teaches biology, genetics, anatomy, and nutrition courses in both face-to-face and fully online formats, and serves as co-chair of the Professional Development and Genetics subcommittees. Dr. Henry engages students with several Achieve tools, including adaptive quizzing, assessments, goal setting and reflection surveys, iClicker polling and quizzing, as well as OER labs authored by faculty in the genetics course. Then we'll hear from Suzanne Delahanty on ensuring the accessibility of online materials and experiences. In addition to teaching psychology courses part-time at College of the Desert, Suzanne serves as the full-time alternative media and assistive technology specialist at Crafton Hills College. Suzanne is an accessibility advocate who oversees college accessibility training solutions and continually assesses 508 ADA digital compliance. Suzanne specializes in helping other college instructors learn about the accessibility of Achieve, as well as its integration into learning management systems such as Canvas and Blackboard. Last but not least, we'll have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, again, put them in the chat as you go. And just a reminder, if we don't get to your question during the webinar, we'll be sure to follow up with you by email. All right, so before I hand things over to Heather, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. We had some big news at the end of last year. We had a big Achieve Essentials release. For those of you in the audience today who are using Achieve Essentials, just so you know, we have added 3 of the most popular features from the premium full course version of Achieve to Achieve Essentials courses. So that's goal setting and reflection surveys, iClicker, and reports and insights. Those are all available at no extra cost now in Achieve Essentials. And you'll be getting to see a little bit about those in action with Heather. So with that, I'll turn things over to you, Heather.
Thank you, Lindsay. Let me get my screen share going here. And apologies if y'all are going to be seeing the side of my face. I'll be working on my big screen over here. But thank you to everyone for joining today. Thanks, Lindsay, for the great introduction. I'm excited to talk to y'all about both what's new in Achieve and provide kind of a refresher for those of you who are returning users. To any of our new users, welcome. Everything you'll see here today will also apply to you. I'll be sure to kind of differentiate things that returning users will do versus what new users would do. But where I actually want to start is extending a little bit on what Lindsay was just talking about with some new features. So she discussed how our Achieve Essentials products now have some great new features that were previously available in just our full course solution, Achieves. But if you want to see anything else that's new, I'm just at the Macmillan Learning catalog page, simply macmillanlearning.com. And if you come down to the bottom, not even the bottom, it's above the fold, we have this button that says Explore What's New and Achieve. And so if you click here, this will allow you to see any improvements that we've made to Achieve since you may have last used this. Of most importance to you all today, of course, new features in Achieve Essentials. We'll talk more about goal setting reflections and iClicker a little later. Another big one is that we've started doing what we call digital updates to some of our titles. So basically, maybe you're teaching a course where subject matter changes, or maybe we've got new activities that can be great for your course. This can be identified by this sort of new activities available in your Achieve course if it applies to your course. Not everyone will have this, but know that you may have some new resources you can assign this semester. Additionally, some really big improvements. If you have to reach out to our customer support team, you can now do so from right in Achieve itself. I'm personally really excited about this feature, and I'll show you it in action towards the end. But basically, no more needing to go somewhere else to reach out to our support team, which is really handy. Additionally, students have a new gradebook view as well, which from what I've heard is a lot more helpful than what we would have had before. We also limit the amount of copy pasting that students can do in our assessments, so that will help keep our questions from getting out into the wild and getting pirated and on those sites that we all hate so much as instructors. We're also coming soon going to have some video assessment grading options. I won't spend too much time on that though. And those of you using iClicker, we also have some new cool text recognition features there. And I thought there was one more that I was going to show, but now I'm not seeing it up here. So apologies there, but know that we were always working to make Achieve better for you. One thing I also want to point out while we're on this catalog page, if you are new to Achieve and you haven't committed to using it yet, do feel free to sign up for a live demo with someone on my team. We have discipline specialists who are happy to meet with you to show you that. That being said, if you have committed to using Achieve and you'd like a little additional training after this webinar, we'll include this link in the follow-up, but you can come to the little menu on the side of the page here and come to Contact Us. And here you will have a link for trainings and demos. And this will take you to a place where you can sign up. You'll say, I've adopted a Macmillan product, sign up for training. We have lots of different options depending on what product you are using, but as we're focusing on Achieve today, I'll select that option. And you can see then it takes you to a page where we've got lots of different training options available, either by discipline, or we have just sort of general sessions for those of you who are brand new to Achieve, or if you're a returning user as well. Again, this link will be in the follow-up email that we send. But for now, I want to turn my attention to actually getting into Achieve. So whether you are a new user, whether you are a returning user, where we're going to want to start is the Achieve sign-in page. Simple to remember, I'd like to think. It's simply achieve.macmillanlearning.com. Once I'm here, I'm going to go to the red sign-in button in the upper right corner, and you'll be prompted to sign in. Now, if you are not sure what your password might be, maybe it's been a while since you've logged in, maybe you're a new user and don't even realize you have an account, go ahead and use this forgot password link, and it will send you an email to allow you to either reset that or set it for the first time. I'm going to go ahead and get my credentials entered in here. Oh, shoot. Embarrassing to do that on a live webinar. There we go. All right. Once we're signed in, you're going to end up at your instructor course list. Just for kind of a review of what we have going on here, this page is divided up into a couple of different sections. First of which is going to be your current courses. So any classes that have a current term date will show up here. This basically means that this course is open to your students and ready for them to enroll into. We also have a section called draft courses. This is where any courses that you've maybe already built for the semester, but the start date hasn't approached yet, that's going to live here until the date approaches. You can see my one I've got here set for January 22nd. So once that date passes, it will automatically move up to current courses and then become active for your students. Also worth noting, you may have something that looks like this on your dashboard where it says copy of and the name of your book. That's just where your sales rep has granted you access to a title. So you can use that as sort of a sandbox playground to just kind of check out resources without actually, building a course. And then down below, you'll see we have past courses. So basically, if you've used Achieve in the past, any course you taught will live down here. And why I like to point this out in particular is if you've taught with Achieve in the past and you were happy with your course, you want to just use it again as is, there's a very easy way to copy your course, which I'll come back to in just a minute. Again, with refreshers, or for those of you who are new, everything I was looking at here was under the courses tab. You may not have a students courses tab, so don't worry if you're not seeing that. But I do like to point out our section manager tab as well. This can be helpful for if you are teaching multiple sections of the same course. You can set up one section manager where you set up all your activities for the term, and it will automatically push it out to each of your sections below. You do also have the option of just setting up one course and creating a copy, which we'll see that in action in just a minute. But I like to point out that that's there as well. So you can see here's a couple of my section managers I have here. Whichever route you choose to take, if you are a new user or if for whatever reason you want to start with a brand new course from scratch, you are going to come up to this teal Create a New Course button. Once you do that, the first thing you're going to be prompted to do is select the template that you want to use. So basically, what textbook are you using this spring? Your list probably will not be as big as mine, but when you see the book that you're using, make sure to confirm it's the correct edition, and you'll click Select Template. I'm going to go back at this point for my returning users and show you how to create a copy. And in a minute, these steps are going to kind of combine and be the same for both instructors. So let me get down to my way too long list of courses here. And let's say that this is my course from fall 23. I want to teach with this same course again. I liked the assignments I had. So I'm just going to make a copy of this and update it to the correct due dates for the current term. To do this, I'm going to come to the three dots over to the right here, and then I'm going to select the option for Copy Course. Now, from this point on, this step is going to look the same whether you're copying or if you're creating a new course for the most part. So you'll come up with this option of creating one individual course, or you also have that option to select the section manager, which is what I spoke about a minute ago. And we just kind of explain here, if you're teaching multiple sections, this can be a good way to go. If you are a department chair creating sections for your various adjuncts and other instructors, this can be a really good way to disseminate courses to them as well. But for our purposes today, I'm going to stick with one individual course. I'm then going to come to Next Course Setup. And then we'll simply fill out the course information as required. So your course name. This is a college success course that I'm copying. So of course, you'll need to select your school. Spring 24 should hopefully already be selected, but if it's not, go ahead and do that. And then you'll want to select your term start date. Now, it's important to be accurate with this. Ideally, please put this as what your first day of class will be. However, if you want to give your students a day or on either side, either a little before, a little after, that's also fine too. But you may receive messaging from Macmillan based on this date, so make sure it's at least close to when your classes will start. And then your end date. This can be the last day of class for you, but you certainly have flexibility here. If you want to give students until final exams are over, maybe a couple extra days at the end of term, feel free to do that as well. optional steps here with choosing what day of the week your assignments open on and entering your class meeting days. Now, for those of you who are copying over from a previous semester, this is a relatively new feature. So if you haven't taught since maybe last spring, you haven't seen it before. We have the option to batch update your due dates. So basically, we're going to grab all your old dates and bring them into the current term. If you want to take that step, in this select first date box, you will pick the day that you want your first achieve assignment due. So as an example, my course opens on the 22nd. Let's say I want my students to have this whole first week to work on their assignments. So their first due date is going to be the 28th. And as we'll see in a minute, this is going to move everything forward, at least mostly. We can always tweak things in case if spring break throws things off or whatever it may be, but this will get everything generally in the right area. If you don't want to batch update like that, you can do copy exact dates, which will be an exact copy of your previous course, or you can choose to not copy assignment due dates if you don't want any of that information to transfer. We won't be covering LMS integration on the call today, but do know that this is something that you can toggle on if you want to use it. And we do have a team of LMS integration specialists you can meet with to help integrate your course once you've got it created. From here, then I will go ahead and click Next Create Course. And now, for those of you who are new to Achieve, you are going to come up with a page that is going to prompt you to either start with a pre-built course or to build your own from the content. A pre-built course varies from title to title, but in general, it's going to pull in your entire textbook along with all the suggested activities for those chapters. It's a great option, in my opinion, if you're new, because you can always remove things if you don't want to use them. And that way you don't have to be responsible for pulling in every single little piece of information you want your students to have. But certainly both great options. Just a little refresher on some navigation here. When I came into my course, it brought me into the course content view. This is where you can come to look at, especially if you're in the pre-built course, all of the pre-built activities that are in your text. In most cases, it's divided up by chapter. Again, every text is a little bit different. And you may also have some sort of generic options up at the top here. In this dropdown, you can choose to toggle over to the assignment view. And as it suggests, this shows all of the assignments in your course and when they are due. Of course, if you are new to Achieve, nothing's really going to show up here. But since I copied over this course, you can see here's my activities that I had assigned in the fall that now have these updated January due dates. So yay, the copy thing worked. And from here, then, if you choose to, you can click on where it says View All, and it will allow you to see your entire semester laid out, where you can do a nice little check to make sure that your dates all look accurate. Now, if you have copied over, if due dates don't quite look correct, we do again have an option to update those either by batch or individual. You can, of course, go into an individual assignment and change it here. But personally, what I find the most handy is to move a whole week at a time, as long as your dates are, at least kind of similar and in line. So if you select this box up at the top, in this case, it said week 2 for me. So it selected all the items that fall under those same week assignments. And up top, I get this Assign Edit button. From here, then, I have the option to come over and do batch actions. And I can edit all dates from here. So let's say that I need to push all of these assignments back into February. I can do that all at once. You see I got my new due dates here, and then I hit save. And now I can see all of my assignments move to that day. Now, those batch actions can also be used for those of you who, one, are new to Achieve, or if you are a returning user and you've decided you want to add some additional activities for the term. So here I'm going to jump back to where it says assignments. And this is where that toggle comes in handy. I'm going to jump back to course content. Again, whether you're new or returning, you can navigate into any folder that you have here. And let's say I want to go ahead and add a couple of activities from chapter 4. You can, of course, explore any resources by simply clicking on the name. But once you've decided what you want to assign, you can simply check the box of those items. And you'll see again, we get this bar up at the top of the screen. You can choose to do the same batch actions like we did before, but note that you can also pick items individually as well. So if I want these all to have a different due date, I have that option. And I apologize, I'm picking just some really random dates here. As long as your assignment has a date and either a point value or is marked as an ungraded assignment, that's all you need to do to make these available to your students. So I'm going to hit save here. And now it took me back to, in this case, my chapter 4 folder. And I can see now there's my various due dates for my activities. Worth noting that for this video activity, this was one I set as ungraded. So basically students just see this February 14th due date, but it will not affect their overall grade in the course. So handy for any optional activities in here. One last way to sort of view and assign content I want to show real quick is we do have a calendar feature in here as well. This can be helpful for those of you who prefer not to see a list. You want to see everything kind of wholly laid out for your term. So this allows you to see everything that is due on a specific day. And worth noting that, again, if you do need to tweak due dates a little bit, we do have a drag and drop feature in here. So if you want to just tweak things that way, you're certainly welcome to. I will hit back to course content, and then it brings me here. Last little bit of navigation I want to show as a refresher is, remember, you do always have this left-hand menu on the side here. Under resources, it will allow you to browse for any additional resources in your class, such as instructor materials, PowerPoint slides, those sort of things. The gradebook will track all of your students' progress and all their activities. All Achieves now have this reporting tab, which will be very important for the goal setting and reflection surveys, which we're going to hear a little bit more about later. But worth noting that you can get all sorts of information about your students' learning experience and sort of where they're at in their understanding of the course material in this reports tab once you assign activities and the goal setting and reflection surveys. Of course, students can always access their ebook right from the ebook tab here. You have access to this as well. And lastly, if you decide you want to create any sort of assessments or exams, you do have this plus create content button, and that will allow you to build your own custom assessment, either by using your own questions, or you can also choose to browse through our test bank of questions as well. I won't spend too much time on that though. Want to be mindful of our other speakers here today. So with that, then what I'll wrap up with, kind of bringing it back to the beginning with our new features, is if you do need any assistance with anything in Achieve, of course, we talked about your training options to give you that initial jump into building your course. But as the semester goes along, if you or your students are having problems with anything in Achieve, we do have our helpful little question mark down in the lower left corner of all Achieve screens. And you'll see we have this option for chat with us. And naturally, oddly enough, it did not open within my course like it was supposed to. So that's interesting. But either way, it still works. So it takes you right to a button where you can click chat with us. This chat feature is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when you click chat with us, it's going to put you in touch with our customer experience associate, Millie, our virtual chat here. She'll have you answer a couple of questions, and then in turn, she'll provide you with help articles that can help guide you, answer your questions that you may have. If it's more technical in nature and she's not able to answer it, she will give you the option to get into touch with an actual contact support member. They're available 7 days a week, not quite 24 hours a day, but you can see down here the hours, pretty much all hours of the day. And that will allow you to either email if it's not an urgent issue, or you can call in if it's something you'd like assistance with immediately. And with that, then I will pause here and turn it back over to Lindsay.
All right, thanks so much, Heather. That was a really nice and thorough refresher of how to get started and achieve. So I will go ahead and share my screen again, and I will turn it over to Stefan. All right.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Henry. I'm a biology instructor at Houston Community College, and Heather gave us some really good features for returning users. That batch action I used that this semester was off a week because of spring break, but the drag and drop and the calendar feature, that is just wonderful. Okay, so I have been using Macmillan products for several years, Launchpad, then Sapling Plus, and now finally Achieve. And today's talk is going to be when you get a pre-built course, you get this goal setting reflection surveys. So when I first glanced at this, I said, ick, oh no, surveys. So often we get these in our spam. We get these invitations to do these surveys. They give you a $25 gift card. They say it's going to take 10 minutes, ends up taking 1 hour. But these are surveys for students. And I'm going to go over some of the questions and how I think it can help your students to achieve more, wink, wink, in their classes. So what makes the goal setting reflection surveys? It's going to be in your pre-built course. You'll see it after before chapter 1, and it's unique to the Achieve platform. So here we have resource type, and with the arrow I'm showing here, the introductory survey, checkpoint survey, and these are the survey questions. You can delete questions, you can modify questions, you can put a choice, do not answer, but I have given points to this. If you don't give points to this, then the students are not going to answer the surveys. It's just like if you are not enticed to get an Amazon gift card as an instructor, you're not going to answer a publisher survey. And this is a live course. I actually taught this course today. It was the first day of the course, one of the syllabus, and left a little bit early. I'm a terrible instructor. I apologize. So I could join all of you. So you can see here at the bottom of the screen, Chapter 1, Adaptive Quiz for Genetics. Next slide, please. So here there are several survey questions, and you can see at the bottom of the choice it says prefer not to answer none of the above. You can actually remove or add any of these choices. But these are challenges, and you can put this survey question after every major exam just to see what your students, and I teach at a community college, so some of my students are really plagued by some of these issues, particularly financial issues. And many of my community college students are working, so it's difficult to balance school and work. So these are some of the questions. You can actually put these questions intermittently during your course, and I'm going to tell you why that's very important. Next slide, please. So expectations. So after an exam, you can ask them, is that what you expected to get? Was it higher than when it's lower? And it gives you a good pulse of where a student is in the class if they answer it honestly. And then you have on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident are you that you can either go back or stay on track? So that is if you get, for example, you get an A on your first test and you get a C on your second test, it just gives them kind of some feedback of how they will do in the future in your class. Next slide. So one of the biggest problems I have with my students is poor study habits, poor time management, and of course, procrastination, waiting till the very last minute to study. So here are some questions on study strategies. So Have you ever used a concept map to study? So this gives students kind of, if you give this question a few times during the semester, if they did poorly on a quiz or a test, if you keep at it and discuss this, did you use concept maps? And then I teach anatomy courses, so you have to memorize. There's almost 200, over 200 bones and 500 muscles. We don't go over, have to memorize all of those, but that is kind of like learning a second language. You need to commit that to memory. So, did you use flashcards? The problem is, as an instructor, on the first day of class, I mention all of these things. Make flashcards with post it notes or index cards. But if you put these surveys, you sprinkle these in 3 or 4 times during the semester, even if they don't want to answer the survey, if they see it, they may think, okay, maybe I didn't use flashcards on this first test to study my vocabulary. Maybe I should try it for my second test. Did you take practice tests? When I do homework assignments, I always open them up after the due date so they can continue. And with my Macmillan text, it's just wonderful. They give a description of the wrong answers. So if the answer in the multiple choice is B, they give you the reasons why C, D, E, and A are wrong. So it's very good to practice tests and different ways to review the class material. So those study strategies, we talk about those on the first day of class, but if you keep going at it 4 or 5 times during the semester, it plants a seed and they may actually adopt some of those. Next slide. Okay, time and planning. So when I first started teaching about 8 years ago, I would hand out a calendar. I just printed out a PDF version to all the students, and I said, well, put your work schedule in there. You don't need to turn it in. And how many classes you're taking. Now with these online classes, it seems like students are taking like 6, 7 classes or kind of overloaded. But this idea of a calendar, if you just bring it up several times and you put points, the important thing is with these surveys, you've got to give a couple points to it. It's just like the iClicker, which is one of Macmillan's, kind of one of their strong products. If you put a point value, if you answer an iClicker question during class, even if it's only 1% of their total grade, you'd be surprised what students will do. They'll claw their way through just to get 1 percentage point. So please, if you're going to do these surveys, you need to put a little bit of a point value. So did you use a calendar? Did you give enough time to complete assignments on time or start early? This is January. A lot of people are worried about their health. You're not going to hire a personal trainer to come an appointment once a month. It's 3 times a week. They need the repetition. So did you start early? Next slide. Okay, distractions. I listened to a newscast right after New Year's, and they asked the people on the newscast, it was a major cable network, what is your New Year's resolution? 4 of the 5 of these newscasters said spending less time on their cell phone. The reason I have this little newborn baby is I tell students their cell phones are like a newborn baby. They can't keep their hands off of their cell phones, always looking at social media, Instagram, TikTok. So here, how often did you study or work on assignments for this class without any distractions? Put that phone away for a couple hours. Don't have any TVs in the background. You need to focus. So limiting your distractions, again, a important study tip. Next slide. Time commitment. In your opinion, how do you feel about the amount of time you spend in this class? Are you using too much, not enough, less time? Again, you don't have to use this question. You can modify it. It's very easy to edit the questions. When I give questions for my genetics course, some of the questions are extremely difficult. I delete them or I modify them. How satisfied are you been approaching your organization, time management, and pacing in the class? So it's kind of similar to some of the other questions, so you can add it or remove it. Next slide, please. Okay, so this kind of, it is a summary slide. Review the best study strategy for yourself. So which of those do you do? Do you start assignments early? Do you use practice problems? Are you good with time management? if they see this question several times in the semester, not on during the first day of class, it kind of clues them in, especially if you're putting points on this, maybe you should do some of these things. And finally, the last slide. Outside help. Always on the first day of class, we give the email and our office hours. We talk about tutoring. We give them directions to the tutoring center, what their hours are. It's in our syllabi. But if someone gets a C on their first test, if you kind of like nudge them a little bit, nudge them, okay, you really might want to go to a tutor. You might want to go to a teaching assistant. How often did you go to office hours? Many students are very shy. They don't want to set up an appointment with their TA or their professor. But if you keep harping on this with these questions, maybe they'll get the courage to send out a request for a 15-minute with the professor or the TA. So that's really, there's so many resources that are offered at our institutions that students never ever use. So if you constantly remind them, and I'm not saying do this every week, but especially after tests, if you give them a little bit of points, they'll do it. So, and then you can, after they go to the tutoring center, after they visit the TA, after they visit with you, you can say, was it useful? Was it somewhat useful or was it not? Because sometimes we don't know how good our TA is with improving our students' performance, or we don't know what's happening in the tutoring center because we're not there. So sometimes we need to actually find out these answers. And yes, at the end of the year, oftentimes they have these surveys, but it's too late. We need feedback about how our tutors are, how our TAs are doing. We need those in the middle of the semester. So the whole point of our talk today, I could have talked about interactive activities in my genetic courses and adaptive learning, but I wanted to give everyone a chance to look at these surveys and maybe using a couple of those questions in your classes to improve your study habits, time management, and your students helping them with outside help. It's offered at our institutions and students aren't taking advantage of it. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions at then, please feel free to ask Lindsay. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Stefan. Thanks for your candid advice. All right, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen so Suzanne can go ahead and share.
Oh, great. Thank you. That was a really helpful introduction to some of the features and Stefan introduced us to. I'll be stealing a few of those ideas from you, if that's okay. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get on with our presentation. So I'll pull up my PowerPoint here and go ahead and start the show for you. And so you've been introduced to me. I'm Suzanne Delahanty. I'm an accessibility advocate, but I've also been an instructor in the community college system for about 20 years. And I love teaching, still do. And one of the things that I want to share with you today is how great the accessibility features are that are pre-built into Achieve, as well as a lot of other Macmillan products. And I'm really just an advocate for accessibility, but good teaching. So this is good for everyone, not just people with physical or visual or hearing disabilities. So I started early with Launchpad, similar to Stefan, and I work with students directly who are disabled at the college, and I provide them with many different types of solutions that are both digital and hardware based. So I'm really into it deep. I evaluate courses. I evaluate if they are ADA compliant, what we call 508 compliant. And these are all catchphrases for the law, basically. Did you know that publishers are not really required to make their coursework accessible? the responsibility falls upon the teacher. They're responsible for the course that they're providing, and they need to ensure that the materials that they use and select, whether they're accessible or not, they need to be made accessible legally by the first day of class. It doesn't matter if you have a deaf student. All of your videos need to be properly and accurately captioned, which is 99%. You can't say, oh, I'll get to it later. If you do that and a student complains, you can be violating the law, and you could possibly have a federal lawsuit on your hands. So you definitely don't want that. And one of the things I find wonderful about this product is it takes all of that work away. I'm an expert on how to remediate documents like PDFs, Word, Excel, to make them compliant for people who are blind or deaf. However, do I want to spend the time to do that? No, it's a nightmare. It's extremely time consuming. I want it pre-built. And knowing that some publishers don't provide those types of features for accessibility, I'm going to select the product that does. So that's why I'm here today, in hopes that some of you will learn to use this product and save yourself so much time. I teach a variety of courses. Unfortunately, not all of them are available with an Achieve account. So unfortunately, I do have to remediate all my files, my PowerPoints, my videos to be compliant all on my own. Nobody does it for you. It's unfortunate, and unless you have content that is already created for you. So I will quickly go into the fact that before I start, you're going to have 10% of your students who are disabled, and that's just the legal definition. There's a lot of us who aren't diagnosed or who will later become temporarily disabled. So you need to keep that in mind. This is also something that helps all learners, English language learners, older students who might need assistance with visual, magnification, things like that. So it's really a great thing to make your courses really top notch. So I'm going to go to my next slide here. And just briefly, Macmillan has really committed themselves over the years. I've been using their products over 10 years to accessibility. I've seen great improvement in the videos. Back in the day, they were not fully compliant because the technology changed from something that they no longer use, Flash, and they now use fully compliant videos. And the ebooks that they use are top quality for blind people to read or low vision people to read. They're called EPUBs. They're very, very easy to navigate for someone who uses what's called a screen reader, who literally reads the words out loud for them, and they can navigate quickly through those documents. The images in all of the Achieve products have excellent alternative text. And what that means is a blind or low vision user, or even somebody who is learning English, for example, or is dyslexic and has a hard time reading, it can read out loud what the images are and describe them to them. And this is something that a lot of instructors don't do, only by ignorance. So each of your documents, if you have images, need to have descriptive alternative text to describe, for example, to a blind user, what is there that they're missing, as long as it's something important to that course. The videos also need to have, as I mentioned earlier, 99% accuracy. It is not okay to have 85% or auto captioning, unless you're doing a live meeting and you don't have a deaf student. That's the only exception. And in simulations, they have a wonderful feature, which is now extremely new, and they use what's called audio descriptions, which means that for a blind user, for something they can't see that's physical going on in a video, it describes what's happening in that video that they cannot see, that's critical to the learning experience. How else would they get it? So it has this a bit of verbiage to allow them to understand, let's say, a science experiment, what's happening with the person's hands at that time. So this is helpful for not just the people that critically need it, but other people that are, not necessarily learning disabled. So they've won numerous awards. If you want to learn more about it, you can see these are just a couple of them. The Accessible Books Consortium is a major thing. They won that in 2020. And if you go to the link on their main page about accessibility, you can see all the other different features, more than what I describe here today, which is just a brief introduction. So last but not least, we'll take a very quick look at an actual course and just some of the features that you may or may not be familiar with that are extremely helpful for your students. You may want to introduce your students to these in your intro video because, like I mentioned earlier, these are helpful to many types of learners, not just those who have a certified disability. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my course. I'll actually close this out right here if I can. And then I have, hopefully you can all see this page. This is my, it's a page which I removed students from, and it is a psychology course, an intro, and it's wonderful. I pulled all the course materials directly from the pre-made content, which makes it extremely, the students can't say anything like, hey, that wasn't something you mentioned in lecture, or wasn't in the reading. There's absolutely no chance that's going to happen. All the quizzes, all the experiences and the walkthroughs and everything is tied directly to content in the textbook and in the experiences. So anything with a little book right here is something that is reading information for them. And if I go into that reading information, this gives us a minute, it's going to go right into the ebook. And I'll show you some of the accessibility features. The most exciting, of course, is the e-text screen reader. So a student who visually has vision that is impaired in some way, it is extremely easy for them to go to a page. And by the way, I'm going to explain the odd looking text to you in a second, but any page, you can go into the reader, and that is here on the top, and you can read the content. You can also not only read out loud, you can change the text size for those who need magnification. You can change it to a font called Open Dyslexia, and also another one that's super legible. So students who have visual issues or dyslexia or even ADHD are really going to benefit from having fonts that have a visual distinction to them, that are differentiated slightly by shape. It's an extremely useful feature. I even use it when I got this job that I have now full time. I use a dyslexic font so that everybody could see it from across the room as I was doing my presentation. And I was very surprised to know that these folks didn't know about this font. So I was excited to share that. So I'll put it on Open Dyslexic for you, and you can change the color of the background. And for those who have reading difficulties, dyslexia, and many others, you can change the height of the lines, which, allows more space and really lets the reader be in control here. You can also reset it very easily. So if I go in here and I put my cursor directly, and by the way, if I'm a blind user, all their content, I can navigate very easily with the keyboard. I can use commands like tab, spacebar. I can use alt tab to go backwards, and everything on each page is set up to be consistent in navigation. If you're a blind user and you change your navigation experience for your menu, for instance, even if it's LinkedIn or an email link, if you change it on different pages, you are really going to confuse them. And isn't that useful to all users? Of course it is. You're going to know where to find things. So it's very well designed in that regard. So let's hear a little bit of their screen reader. You just simply need to touch the read out loud control and play.
A photo of students in a classroom. One student raises their hand.
So that was the text description I was talking about. It will tell somebody who cannot see that image what is there. And then, of course, read the rest of the book.
Introduction. What is psychology?
Now, some people, our ADHD students, they're going to want to speed that up so they can, or if they have a slower lecture, they're going to want to speed it up, or they can slow it down. If they have difficulty following, they can change the voice. They actually have quite a few that they can pull up, even in different languages. It's very, very cool feature. And then you can actually change the way the reading mode is more of a focused experience and skips content that is distracting, or it really goes through each line comprehensively. So there's some really great features in there, and you can skip forward and back. So this is one of my favorite features. Now I'm going to go back to my actual chapters and show you a couple other things quickly. And we're going to go down to Learning Curve. Learning Curve is a great extra credit, like Stephen or Dr. Henry was mentioning earlier, that if you want to give students incentive to do something, gamify it and give them points. I always have an introduction survey and sort of a tutorial that gets them to understand the course, and they're going to get extra credit for it. So they're going to jump right on that. That's one of the first things in my weekly work for them to do, is an orientation assignment. And all it is basically an intro to Achieve and all the different features that they're going to want to know about. And then Learning Curve is a great way for me to give them incentive and gamification to try to learn what's going on in that chapter that's going to be the most important and be on that test. And like Dr. Henry mentioned, I try to take out all the hideously difficult questions so that they don't feel too discouraged. And I'm certainly going to take out things I know I'm not going to add to my quizzes, because I will take out certain questions that are notoriously difficult. And they do allow you to choose questions by difficulty, which I love. And that's really a cool thing. If it's an AP class, and of course you may be going to use the more difficult ones. So this is a gamification. You can see how the students are performing. And basically it allows them at their own pace to do a topic and learn on that specific topic. So I'm not going to go through that right now. It's a little difficult. I can preview it as a student, but the whole process does take time. But it is at your own pace. So somebody who, really needs to go slowly, this is wonderful. The other thing is, I really love the fact that they have what's called concept practice, which is a visual aid to exactly what is in the book as far as diagrams and charts and things like that. But it gives you a visual representation that is often interactive. So it allows the students to go through steps. It describes it more clearly. And I think students who use mobile devices are going to be more apt to do this online. So I really enjoy this feature, and it comes directly out of the book. So you're getting them to read the book. And I don't include everything from every chapter, just what I think is most important. And then another thing, they've got experimental research, video activities, for instance, in chapter 1. And in this case, the students, and you're seeing it in teacher mode, I'm going to go ahead and launch this very quickly. And it's timed. Of course, I give them a lot of time for these because it's not a test. And I don't want them to spend 8 hours on it, obviously. But they can go through, listen to this, and they have closed captioning that is excellent. It even has video description that says music's playing for deaf students so they understand what they're missing and if it's relevant. And it has excellent videos, so very up to date now. And
But
if we go
if
through,
exercise improves memory, then if we
you can
make
change
people exercise, we
all
should
these
see an
features,
improvement in their-
speed,
If we wiggle
open
the pause,
transcript.
we
Now,
should
why
see
would you want that?
wiggling in the effect.
This can be read
Is
by
the
somebody
book an
who's
idea
blind.
about human behavior?
And let me
Maybe
just
what
go
makes
back
people
here.
happy, for example.
Pauses for a second. The transcript is really helpful for a blind user because they can read super fast speed. Did you know that? They can read about 10 times faster than we can because they're so dependent on screen readers. So they're going to get bored with this video. So they're going to open this transcript 9 times out of 10 and have their screen reader read it out loud to them. And they are going to be very happy that you allow them to do that. Trust me. They're not going to want to listen to this whole thing when they can get through it auditorily through their transcript. So those are just some wonderful features. They also have in here anything that the student can't see. They're going to have an excellent audio description of that. So we go back, and that is just about it. We can also magnify. We have about a 400% magnification, which is well above the legal requirement of 200. And I am done for now. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Thank you so much for coming today and visiting.
Great, thanks so much, Suzanne. It's great to hear about how our accessibility really can impact students directly from an accessibility specialist. I definitely feel like some of those features I benefit from myself, like captions and the video speed. So
Definitely, yes.
yeah. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and share my screen again. So before we get to the Q&A, I'm just going to give everyone a minute to type in their questions if they have any. But I just wanted to promote that we are doing a version of this webinar next week for our iClicker folks. So this will be back to school with iClicker on Monday, January 22nd at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll have a couple other peer consultants that you'll hear from, Jeff Henriquez and Justin Schaefer. And there's a lot that's new with iClicker this term and this year. So a lot of AI stuff, accessibility updates, new iClicker events. So if you're not using iClicker already with Achieve, you can come to learn more about some tips and tricks to get started. So we hope to see you there too. All right, so I have one question. Maybe this is good for Heather to answer, but where can someone go if they need help integrating Achieve with their learning management system like Canvas or Blackboard?
Sure. So the first step is, of course, to make sure you have your Achieve course ready, which is what we kind of walked through towards the top of the screen. And then we'll include the training follow-up email, a training link in the follow-up email, I should say, that will show you where you can go to sign up with a team. Lindsay, do you mind if I share my screen real quick? I can show what that page looks like.
Yeah.
So from our, let me take you kind of back a little bit here. So from our catalog page, when you're just at macmillanlearning.com, you can come to the 3 lines over here on the left, go to contact us, and then training and demos will bring you to this page we were just on. And then if you come to this sign up for training, you'll see the last option here is LMS integration training, and that will allow you to get in touch with a specialist based on the LMS platform that you're using. I do want to emphasize again, though, do make sure that your Achieve course is set up first before meeting with these specialists so that your course, so that your session can be especially helpful.
Perfect. Okay, question for Stefan. Approximately how much time did it take you to do all that setup for the goal setting and reflection surveys at the start of your course?
Oh, the thing is I modify some of the questions and I would say like an hour or two. There's just many questions. It's just like Suzanne was saying with these in the pre-built courses for the question banks, depending on your discipline, there's a lot of questions that they've gathered. So it's the same thing with the survey. You don't want to use all of them, so you just use the ones that are more pertinent. I really like the ones about the study strategies, and because we have boot camps at our college on study skills. So how to use flashcards properly, how to use drawings, tricks, memorization tricks, things like this, concept mapping, flow charts, and so forth. All of this. And the thing is, you mention those things on the first day, but if you keep mentioning it, then maybe students start using it. So it's just, you got to nag. I mean, I know that sounds, if you do these reflection surveys just at the beginning, it doesn't work. It needs to be done after major tests. When students see that they're not getting the grade that they expected, they need to kind of improve their study habits. It's tough. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it. It's really tough because I know that our audience here is mostly the college level, but as an elementary school and middle school teacher, you really have an impact on those study habits because it's hard for these students to break them. It really is. So I think, yeah, an hour or two. They have, I mean, what I did instead of doing what Suzanne did, where she went through the course, I just did screen grabs. So it would go a little bit, hopefully, smoother, because when I've tried to do it, Suzanne was very adroit at doing that, moving from one thing to another. I was really impressed with that. Yes, so there's a lot of questions there, and if you only want to use 5 of the questions, that's good. But if you use it every 3 weeks and you see changes in the students' responses, because you get the statistics, right? She showed that in some of the questions, so you can see, the students, oh, well, maybe my time management wasn't so good, and now I've used better time management. And it's nice to see if I need more students and I need more data. So I would need kind of like maybe 100, 200 responses before I can, kind of like take all the data and see if it's actually working like I think it is. Because I need the evidence, right? I mean, I teach STEM courses, so I need to see the evidence. Right. But once I get that, hopefully I'll have more to report at a future date that these surveys are constructive and it actually is improving student performance and outcomes. So that's why I would use it, because when it first came out, I joined one of these type of panels and I saw another instructor using it and I said, well, I'm going to give this a shot because they don't have this in other publishers. I mean, one thing that I liked about Suzanne's talk is some of these accessibility features, the other major publishers do not offer it. So this reflection surveys is kind of a new thing that I have not seen, and I work with some other publishers. So yeah, just give it a shot. Sorry I took up so much time.
No, that's okay. No, we'll have to get an update from you next time on how it went this semester.
And I wanted to mention, Dr. Henry, I too, when I first saw the new features with all the surveys, I did say, yuck, I don't want any surveys for my students. I hate surveys. I get sent 3 or 4 of those a week. However, they are very helpful. I agree. And I am not against them now. I think they're a wonderful tool for the same reasons you mentioned. So I highly recommend them.
Great. Well, thanks so much. I mean, that we're at time. We went a little bit over, but thanks to those of you who've stuck with us and taken time out of your busy day. I know it's the start of the term and a busy time for everyone. So thanks for taking the time. And in the next few days, we'll be sending an email with a follow-up, the recording and the slide deck. But from all of us at Macmillan Learning, thanks for joining us, and we hope you have a good semester. So,
Thanks. Same to you.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.